Alright, guys. I have been waiting for the Shymalan Renaissance for 5 years. And can officially say I think M. Night Shyamalan has gotten his groove back, like Emperor's New Groove.
I've been waiting for this since he did Avatar. Not the blue one, not the blue person one.
The
last
Airbender
one. Yes, Aang, where they couldn't even pronounce the main character's name.
I saw the trailer, I'm like, no. But, I gotta say, Split was great. I thought James McAvoy deserved an Oscar for that movie, and it is a shame he didn't get it. Glass was okay.
You could say it was a Shyamalan, no?
Glass was okay. Like, I liked it, but it definitely didn't live up. But it wasn't a terrible M. Night Shyamalan movie when I watched Glass. But really, this is the movie that I can say is probably as good as some of his first movies that we've seen.
Yeah.
More of that coming up in our review of Old.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Geekdom Movies. Today we are reviewing M. Night Shyamalan's newest movie, Old. Thank you, Universal Studios. We wanted to give you a shout out for the early screening passes. We thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I'm Shannon, this is Fahad, and way in the back, but certainly not least, is George.
And
we are going to break this movie down for you without any spoilers because it is not out in theaters yet.
Yeah, so like I said during our intro, I have been waiting for the Shyamalan Renaissance for a long time because there was a period, probably up to like close to a decade, where every movie that M. Night Shyamalan made was either terrible or bad, and there was no middle ground. And so I just kind of gave up a while ago, just not even wanting to watch this movie. Then he dropped a movie that nobody saw coming. It's Split with James McAvoy. He plays a character that he has a bunch of different personalities inside of him. One's a woman, one's a kid, one's a, like 10 different personalities, and he completely changes his voice and his like his presence of who the character is, and it was downright phenomenal. Like, I thought James McAvoy pretty much killed it. I think everyone who watched Split was like, oh my god, M. Night Shyamalan just made one of the best movies we've seen in a long time, and it was true. I still think James McAvoy deserved an Oscar nomination for that role. And of course, in the movie, he had one other personality that could either be a serial killer or a monster, and we just didn't know. And I won't ruin it for you guys, but seriously, go watch Split. You're gonna love it. That was the great, where I was like, yes, M. Night Shyamalan is back. Then they dropped the trailer for Glass, which was the sequel to Split, and it was okay. And it wasn't a bad movie. It wasn't like, oh my god, this is the worst thing to happen like his other movies, but it didn't really live up to my expectations that I had after watching Split. Now, this is his third movie after those two, and this movie, guys, this movie is exactly the type of story that I love. It has mystery. Mm-hmm. It has really interesting characters. Mm-hmm. It's actually doing some things that I've never seen a movie do, mm-hmm, in really interesting ways. And the ending, he kills the ending. Mm-hmm. Like, I was like, I don't know how they're gonna end this movie, because this mystery and where they're going, like, I was just like, what is the solution to this? And I did not see that. I don't know, maybe you guys were smart and probably...
No, I didn't figure it out.
No? Okay. So I did not figure it out, and I loved it. I would say, here are my top three favorite M. Night Shyamalan movies. The Sixth Sense, Signs, which I love. I love Signs. I used to watch that so much with the Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix, mm-hmm, Aliens. Love that movie. And The Village, even though people didn't like it, I actually thought the ending for The Village was really smart and interesting. And after that, I've just basically for like a good decade have been ignoring M. Night Shyamalan. Even Split, when it came out in theaters, I didn't even look up to see if it was good. It was until the word of mouth spread that everybody was like, oh my god, Split is great. I was like, wait, M. Night M. Night Shyamalan made a good movie. So I actually saw it much later, like 6 months later, like on DVD or like streaming or something, and I was like, wow, this is fantastic. And I think this movie probably is not something. I mean, lower your expectations here. Like, what you think is going to happen, and there are things that they put in the trailer make you think it's going to go one way. It actually doesn't. Just kind of go into this movie without even thinking about the trailer, because the trailer is not very accurate to what happens in the movie.
That's a good thing.
I saw most of the plot points from the trailer that I saw. I kind of anticipated what would happen in the movie.
Okay, and we can talk about in the spoiler. I'll say why. If you guys have seen the movie, come back and watch the spoiler review at the end of this, and we can talk about why I think it's different. But I don't want to ruin it for the people who haven't seen it yet. But I think that'd be a good discussion to have. Yeah, just really smart. A lot of things I did not see coming. Really interesting plot points that I was like, wow, that's really unique. And so for me, I would say, yeah, go watch it in theaters, because I think you're gonna get the ending ruined, because this movie is gonna be talked about. I think this is gonna be the movie where, like, if you don't see it in theaters, somebody's accidentally gonna tell you that Bruce Willis is a ghost, kind of a thing. You know, if you watch The Sixth Sense,
yeah.
Yes. And our theater was packed, and everybody was really into it. Yes, we had some critics. Yes, we had some studio people, and yes, there was actually some people who probably were just there to see it. But everybody, at least from where I was sitting, the thing is, I was not near George and Shannon. I came in an hour early, and it was completely full. I'm like, oh my God, like, I texted them, I'm like, guys, we're not going to be sitting together. So I kind of got a seat in the back. I
got the last seat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they said we have one seat left.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so that tells you how busy this movie was. So I was in the back, and everybody was like pinning needles. It was like a lot of people. I kind of looked around a little bit into the movie, and everybody was like, just like super into the movie.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is working on every level. I do think the beginning is kind of wonky, like the first 20 minutes. If I had one thing to say, the first 20 minutes were just...
I knew you were going to say that.
It was
has
just...
kids in it.
No, that's not the reason. It was just wonky.
I loved it because it had kids in it.
No, I loved it too. Okay, it's not spoilers, so I'll just talk about this. There's a moment where it's not spoilers. Really, it's like the first 10 minutes. Like, don't even think anything of it. There's a joke that happens where the father's like, oh, I'm sorry, this beach is only for adults, not kids. And the kids kind of jump on him, and the camera just zooms in on the wife's face way longer than it needed to. It was just stuck on her face.
It did do that.
And I was like,
for a reason, and I'll bring that up later.
Yeah.
Okay. But it just felt wonky. Like, it just didn't, and there were just little things, little details like that where I was just like, it just doesn't feel natural. And I don't...
There was a reason, though, that they did that.
No, I know. I just felt it was weird. It kind of took me out of the movie, the way those choices were. Nothing to do with it. I actually think the kids were fantastic in this movie. And spoilers to what happens later, it's very interesting. I mean, there's one thing that happened where I was like, are they really going to go there? And I'm like, oh, they definitely went there. I was like, okay, like, that answers that question, which I'll talk about later. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
I'll say the tent scene. There's a tent scene that doesn't give anything away.
It's in the trailer, too.
Okay, well, I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I don't think it's the perfect movie, but it doesn't need to be a perfect movie. I was thoroughly entertained. M. Night Shyamalan, I'm glad you're back. Shyamalan Renaissance continues.
This movie actually was, it kept me entertained the whole time, and I was a little shocked about that, because I went into this movie kind of a little pessimistic, just because I'd seen way too many trailers for it over and over and over again. And so I was like, okay, what's up with this M. Night Shyamalan that Fahad and Shannon can't praise enough? And, you know, I
was praising him before the movie.
Have you seen his movies before?
I didn't realize they were his movies.
Okay, gotcha.
Oh, really?
I
Okay.
liked Split. I didn't realize that was him.
I love Split.
Sorry. there were a few other movies of his I'm sure I saw and liked.
Did you ever see The Sixth Sense or
No,
Signs?
I haven't seen The Sixth Sense yet, but I know I really need to see
that. Yeah, that movie. There's a reason that movie was nominated for Best Picture.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so yeah, going into this, I didn't have high expectations, which I'm glad about, because it's not like there are no plot holes. But this is a very good movie, and it will keep you entertained.
Mm-hmm.
It does have a lot of genres that I didn't anticipate from a movie like this. And it goes into, like, a little bit of social commentary and, like, different things.
A lot of social commentary, I would say.
But like it goes into some different things that I definitely was glad he put in there, and I did not expect at all. Out of anything, this movie will keep you, like, you think you're gonna get bored of it, and you don't. It just keeps going, and you can't stop watching. It's really good.
Yeah, I gotta make a point, and I was thinking about you while I was watching this, and halfway point I realized this is the Fantasy Island movie that I actually wanted.
Oh, okay,
that is so true.
Yep.
Because what the fantasy...
Oh my goodness, yes.
This is it. This is what I wanted from Fantasy Island. This supernatural mystery done in such a way, and Fantasy Island completely blew it. But this worked, yeah. Anyways, Shannon?
All done, George?
Yes, I would say go watch this movie. Maybe don't take your kids. But watch
Definitely
this
don't take your kids. But if they're teenagers, I think it is rated PG-13.
I would say
I think
if they're teenagers, that would make sense. Because it would still be an interesting discussion to have with them.
I have so much to talk about.
So, have you guys seen the meme that's like a really crazy news article headline, and it says, "At no point in this news article did I know what the next word was going to be"?
No, I've never even heard of it.
So I saw that the other day, and I was laughing at it, and that's what this movie felt like. It was like, at no point in this movie did I know what the next scene was going to be, because it just like hits you with all these weird, interesting ideas, and all of them work, and it just is...
Which is
so
really
entertaining.
surprising, yeah.
It never gets boring. There are no dull moments. None of it's slow. I'm very prone to getting distracted and bored during movies and having other thoughts race through my... That didn't happen. I was glued to the screen. Like, I was fully in this world for this movie. And rarely do I ever have the thought, I hope this movie is not over. I want it to keep going.
Yeah.
This movie, I wanted to keep going. Like, I was like, I hope this is a 4-hour-long movie, because I am here for every minute of it. And it has a lot of the same things that I liked about Midsummer, where it's just a bunch of weird stuff happening.
I would say this is better than Midsummer, but that's just me.
Hopefully you guys didn't think this one was a comedy.
There were parts that were funny, but not because they were meant to be funny. It was just weird.
Yeah, it's just awkward, weird stuff.
It was similar to Midsummer in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to think about that. Maybe.
And it kept me engaged in the same way that, like, A Quiet Place did.
Yeah.
Like, it's glued to the screen. Also, fun fact, did you guys notice that the youngest girl was the same actor?
Abigail Breslin, Little Miss Sunshine, adult now.
Wasn't her?
That was her, Abigail Breslin.
She was the girl that played Beth in the Little Women movie.
Which one?
The youngest girl.
When she... Okay, so the little girl was in the Little Woman.
The one that played Kara.
Okay.
When she was older.
Older, okay.
She was Beth.
Okay,
Women.
I recognize Abigail Breslin because she was in Little Miss Sunshine, and she just has that face, and I'm like, oh my god, you're you're an adult now.
Did she play?
Well, she played the older sister as she got older.
Oh, really?
She played the teenage version,
I think
Abigail Breslin, and she's attractive now.
That is something I would like to bring up, actually, is the fact that the casting was amazing.
Yeah, it was great.
No, not amazing. Phenomenal.
I literally don't know if they cast new actors or if they age progressed with technology.
Oh, they definitely age progressed with other actors. It was just uncanny.
I couldn't tell when they switched to a new actor.
I mean, I could, but at the same time I couldn't, because it was so... good job, M. Night, on casting this film, because this is the first time I've seen every single kid
looked like they're...
Without going too much into spoilers, as you've seen, it's called Old because they're stuck on a beach and they get older. Yeah, absolutely, you're 100% right.
So good.
Totally forgot about that.
Yeah, the casting was perfect. Every single actor was good. They all were believable that they were the other person they were supposed to be. I mean, just start to finish, great movie. Go see it if you're
Wait
into.
to talk about spoilers.
I love what they call like pretty horror, where it's you're at a beautiful location and everything looks nice, but it's still tense and scary.
Like Midsummer.
Like Midsummer, and there's just a little bit of gore, but this movie
didn't have
I'm
a lot
on
of gore at
tropical
all.
Beach.
Yeah,
there was hardly any gore, but it's intensely scary and intensely thrilling.
Yeah,
because of the concept of it.
Right.
So, any spoilers?
So must watch in theaters.
Oh yeah, go see it in theaters.
All right, guys, we're gonna move on to our spoiler discussion. If you haven't seen it, please come back and watch it later. Again, we're getting tired of saying this, but this is a golden popcorn. Anytime golden popcorn, how it works is go see in theaters. So Shannon said go see in theaters. George said go in theaters. Yeah, so it gets the golden popper approval. I think our movies can sometimes be unique and different, and that's why I like it. If all three of us, coming from a very different perspective, say we want to watch it, one of you might match up with one of us at least, just in that, I think more like Shannon, I think more like George, I think more like me. So go check it out. Come back. Check out us doing the spoiler discussion. Let's start off. I gotta say, I have to talk about this. I know it's nitpicky, but I don't like when kids get older, but the clothes still fit them. It bothers me.
Well, the oldest girl had to change a swimsuit, and the boy took his dad's clothes when he died.
Okay, so maybe I just didn't pick up,
there was a line.
Okay.
There was one situation though, and that was with the other girl. They didn't.
The little girl,
yeah. They didn't. They didn't really bring up the fact that she had to change, even though she did change.
They just didn't really go into it.
Yeah.
Because of this.
That might have had to do as well with the tent scene, and I think it did.
Yeah, I think there was probably people that had like a swimsuit on and they had a spare change of clothes and they threw it on the kid.
So let's talk about the tent scene, because that is the most controversial thing in this movie. These kids, it's
exactly what would happen.
I don't know.
If this was a real situation and you had kids become adults and have adult bodies, but a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old mind, they would figure this out within a day.
Would they?
Exactly. Yes.
They would figure out, let's have sex that fast, that quickly.
If you had all those
and
hormones,
a girl would be like, oh, I'm bleeding and this hurts. Maybe you should stop. Like, I don't buy it. I'm sorry, but that's just me. I don't buy it.
Well,
13-year-olds get pregnant all the time.
Yes, but they know what they're getting into. There's a little bit of progression. If a brain
the
of a
boy
young...
at least knew. They brought that up when he talked with his dad. He was like, what you just did was to have a baby. And he's like, and I understand that, but I thought you had to do it 10 times.
Yeah.
So basically, like, he
the
already
boy
knew
and he
what
told
that
the little
was.
Girl.
Okay, but a little girl that becomes more older would still get
But their minds also matured. Not as quickly.
I don't know. Something about it. Maybe it worked for you guys. That's fine.
So when the older girl, I can't remember her name, when the older sister girl is talking to the rapper, she's saying, my thoughts have more colors now. Yesterday they had a few colors, now they have these bright, intense colors. I kind of interpreted that as her having like a crush on him. I
get it, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but I also at the same time feel like it just didn't, like, oh wow, we're older, let's have sex. Like, that's what it felt to me like.
I feel like
was
that's
happening.
What would happen. Maybe not in one day.
I think they kind of got caught up in the moment too.
Yeah.
Because like, you reach a certain point where you kind of like primal urges take over.
That's true. Okay.
And they were pretty darn close to that point.
Yeah.
With where they were at. So I would say it was pretty accurate.
Okay, so it worked for you guys. All right, well,
it worked for me. Yeah.
Yeah, let's move on to the next thing. I am so glad there isn't a monster in this movie, because every single M. Night Shyamalan, there's supernatural stuff happening here. No way around that. But I was expecting.
That's more scientific.
My mind was going towards, like, there's these people who are like these monster people who have been doing this, and the hotel has been working with these monster-like people.
Yeah, no,
that's where I thought
that too.
And I talk about that because
I think he leads you down that road because of the camera angles that he chooses in Rocks. He chooses certain camera angles that are. No, not just the trailer.
Okay.
No, during the movie, he chooses certain camera angles that are like deliberately you're just waiting for something to pop out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and usually he does. I'm like, okay, when is the monster? Whatever these people, and maybe they're like these native islanders who are like, like there's these natives who live on this island and they do witchcraft or some kind of thing to stay young. I that's where my mind was going. And also, speaking of the trailer, there's a scene in the trailer where the boy like has the candle and he sees something, and in the trailer he's like, ah! I'm like, oh, whatever that is, that's a monster coming to attack you. Now, they did that in The Voyagers, or what did we watch?
Voyagers, yeah.
Voyagers, but here it worked. In Voyagers, I was like, no, the monster, you just lied to us. While here,
Yeah.
in the context of the story
It makes
and where that
He
scene
saw it.
was,
He
he
saw
saw
it.
the girl who was like, don't look at me, turn off the light. It
She was
progressed.
not a girl. She was a old lady.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
in the movie, they're not tricking you. They're just saying, this is what's happening. This woman, all she
Yeah.
cares about is her looks, and, like, that's how you saw it from the first scene with the mom telling her little daughter, hey, like, don't slouch or else boys won't like you, and this. You're like, okay, like, there was a natural progression to the mom becoming what she became in the movie, because she was so, like, she's one of those, even when, like, you saw her first get to the beach, she takes out her phone and does one of those Instagram photos of, like, look, I'm at a beautiful beach, and, like, those Instagram models or Instagram influence, I don't know what you call them, but they have like hot women sitting somewhere and they sell clothes. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I heard happens.
I want
don't
that
know.
job.
I do not want that job because it sounds boring as heck. But the point is, like, you could tell her mind was always on how to eat healthy, how to make sure you look as hot as possible 24/7, and that's
Yeah.
what she was presenting. It was such a natural progression in the cave where I was like, yeah, that makes complete sense to me. I'm glad there wasn't a monster. Did you guys also think there was going to be a monster that was going to
No,
come?
I did not.
I did.
Okay.
I did, just because of how many times I'd seen the trailer and how many times it looked like they were
Yeah.
going to have jump scares.
Yeah. And awesome. I don't mind a trailer throwing me for a loop if it works in the context of the movie.
Yeah.
And this movie totally worked in the context of the movie. Last thing before we
I
finish
have
this.
one other thing
Yep,
too.
go ahead.
So the scene with the mom, where basically it was zoomed in on her while the kids were jumping on the dad, that was basically a nostalgic scene.
Oh, yeah.
So essentially, she knew that she had this tumor.
Oh,
Okay, so
okay,
basically
okay.
she was
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
she knew she had the tumor, and she
Right.
knew that they were going to be separating.
Yeah.
So she was like,
This is the last
This is
time.
the last time. Yes.
Oh, technically it was the last time
Yep.
the movie goes. But yeah, okay, let's talk about one of the best endings I've ever seen. Not where I thought this was going. And every time those guys showed up on the top of the mountain, just like they had, like, you could see the lens flare.
Yeah.
I
was
thought
like,
that they were
okay,
gonna-
they're gonna eat them, right? Like, or cannibalize them.
I thought that they were gonna like film a reality show and like put them on, use it as like television, but then when they came out of the island, they would all revert back to their regular ages and forget
Like, gotcha.
everything.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I
Like,
see where you're
for-
going. I'm
like,
like,
they'd forget
TV
everything.
television would not let you die.
I thought this was gonna be like some sort of like Saw
A prank?
or like something kind of like escape room or something like that, where basically it's like they were trapping people until they were
and
able
they're
to
torturing
escape.
them, and yeah. Okay, yeah. I just expected there were these natives that live on this island, and they have a deal with this hotel, and to continue to do the hotel, you have to send some people to this part of the island to kind of like, back in the day where you like sacrificed a virgin to the volcano
Yeah,
to like
okay.
make the gods happy. Like it was kind of like that. That's
Yeah.
because that's what I've seen. It was like totally where it was going, and there was even a part that they showed a statue of this old statue, kind of like saying like natives. Like right before the ending, like 30 minutes before the ending, you get a shot of like this statue, this old native-looking statue.
Totally missed that.
You might have, yeah. And it just kind of, and it's not like in your face. The camera just kind of moves, and you're like, oh, there's a statue. That's interesting. So my mom was like, oh yeah, of course. There's some natives here who's doing some kind of witchcraft, and then they're gonna do something to please the gods to keep their youthful. They've been alive for like thousands of years by taking away the, like, kind of like Tangled. It's a weird Disney thing to say, but the stepmom in Tangled was using her hair to stay youthful. I kind of like, that's a weird thing to say because Tangled is nothing like this movie, but that's where I thought it was going. But then to get these people who figured out a long time ago that people age really fast here, but they can try to like experiment with things to save people's lives. I'm like, this social commentary is off
there
the
was
chain.
Not really a villain because he had such good intentions, but then
they're a
he's
villain.
Totally a villain.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting. It was a very sympathetic villain, and that was interesting.
Yeah.
To me, he was not a sympathetic villain. You can't
Really?
torture people. I get it.
Okay, this is
you
what
know?
this is what we have in this movie is the trolley problem. You got a train going down the trolley, and you have 300 people in the train, and there's a car on the train track with your whole family in it. Do you push the car off the tracks to save your family, or do you push the train off the tracks to save your family, or do you whatever? You know, the trolley problem.
I have never heard of this. I have no
Really?
idea what you're talking
You haven't?
about. No.
The train is gonna
Or
crash,
basically,
or the car
which-
is gonna crash. You have to pick one to
Oh,
save.
you got to
Like-
pick one to not crash.
Yeah.
Yeah, of
Exactly.
course. I'm going to pick my family, but the situation
But
in
then
that
you're
is
killing 300 people
but
for your 5 family members.
again. But the difference is, you don't know that was going to happen before you made that option. These people knew they were sending these people to be experimented on and to die.
But by
But they
doing
were
so, they're
doing that.
saving thousands of lives.
Exactly.
For all of the future.
Which
yeah,
they-
but
they
that's
bring
still
up.
it's evil logic, I guess you could
Yes.
say. Evil logic. Something somebody does that's evil. What was I saying? Oh, no. I love the part where they grew up, and that I knew that paper was going to come back, but I just didn't know how. And I was like, maybe it's not going to come back. But he like takes out and decodes it like a spy game, and it just says my uncle is. I'm like, why is he a family? He's like blue-eyed red hair, and this kid looks Filipino, but he's like my uncle. I was like, oh, okay. There's like more of a distant. you
Oh
know.
yeah.
It was the man from Uncle.
I love that movie so much. Not to get and like he decodes it. They figure out it's the corals. If you go towards the corals, and they did it really smart. Like M. Night Shyamalan, who plays this villainous guy who's
I
watching.
really had no clue where it was going at the end. No.
Yeah, look, and he's like, "Oh no, we got it." Like I'm sure they're in the corals and they didn't pop back up. They probably died. But then I'm like, that's gonna
Like,
be.
they're not dead.
You're not dead, but logically it made sense. They got stuck. They finally ripped it off, but they didn't come to the surface. They breathed air with the corals around them and being underground, and they went back in underwater, making the guy who's played by M. Night Shyamalan, this watcher guy who's been watching them, be like, "Oh yeah, they're not. They haven't come to the surface. They must be dead. Nobody can survive this long underwater." But it was done in such a smart way that you're like, he didn't. I wouldn't if I was that person. Let's say I'm this person who's watching the like. Well, they can't be underwater this long. They're gonna lose their breath, and there's no way, no matter how good his camera lens is gonna see somebody's head pop up above coral to breathe in for a few seconds and go back under. So he left. They show up at the hotel, and I loved that he gave the book to the cop, because remember
That
the kids were
was
running.
so
I was like,
good.
oh my god, this movie is nailing it. This movie is completely nailing it. Like they're
But then that almost brings up more questions, though, simply because that's almost like one of the plot holes. Everybody who was invited there was invited for a reason. So why was the cop there and he never went to the beach?
because a lot of those people didn't go to the beach.
A lot of those people. Remember, he said those kids over there. You can play with those kids.
Yeah.
Some of those people were just there at the resort.
There were
To make
people
it
who
look like a
stayed
legit
at the resort,
That
but there
didn't
was
go to the beach.
which they were doing it smartly. The specific people with health issues were being experimented on to go to that side of the beach. And that's how they were chosen. Everybody else was not chosen to like go there, but they were just there being at the hotel enjoying their vacation, and they continued to stay at
That's
that
probably
beach.
how they pay for all their research.
Right. I mean, it has to be a hotel. They can't just keep inviting people to get murdered. Some people
Yeah,
like
right.
if there's some people that go missing here and there, it's less investigative.
Suspicious,
And
yeah.
oh, they must have. I don't know.
And the clues that they're leading up to that give you this are so good. Like, does everyone have their passports in their safe? You're like, oh, that's suspicious. They want to know exactly where their passports are. And then they leave all their cell phones and stuff back at the house. And then they have
No,
that.
they didn't. They didn't leave their cell phones.
Well, did they just
actually
not
brought
work
their cell
or something?
phones.
'Cause-
Basically, there was no service there.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So they had all these clues. Like, they hand them that specifically made cocktail that was just for them. And then they had their stuff was all in a safe. And then the kid is like looking all suspicious when they're going to the beach, and his dad shoos him away. And then there's somebody watching them, and then they give him all this extra food that they don't need. And then they refuse to help them carry all the heavy stuff down to the beach.
because they can't cross that line
'Cause
because
they
they won't
knew
be
they
able to
couldn't
get
come
it
back.
out. Right.
So if you really sit there and look at it, you can kind of start to piece it together.
Like it's...
who's behind it.
Yeah, they're really... Everything is explained without
Very well.
any... I'm sure there are plot holes, but at the end of the day, the plot holes are very few or far between, where it doesn't really affect the overlying story context, I guess. All right, guys, we got to move on, but thank you so much for checking our review. Go check out Old and let us know your thoughts. Of course, you can find us on Facebook. Our website is geekdommovies.com. Geekdom Movies on Facebook, Geekdom Movies on our YouTube. If you put in Geekdom Movies, you'll find us somewhere. All right, take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.